And now, an Envision Financial podcast with Luke Smith on Canberra's 2CC.
And we all know what they say about plans. Good afternoon, Luke Smith.
Well, go the milk.
Up the milk, absolutely.
For sure.
What is it? There's a couple of things people say about plans. You can make all the plans you like, and then some idiot comes along and ruins it for you, except the word's usually not idiot. And, of course, God laughs at people who make plans. There's a lot of things about plans, but unfortunately the reality is if you don't make a plan, you can, of course, cause yourself a lot of problems, can't you?
You can, and I think was it Mike Tyson said everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face.
That's another one. That's right. That's exactly right.
We can't do that anymore because now everyone has feelings and they're emotional.
No, come on.
The fear of that's just been brought out of society, hasn't it?
Well, the thing is, though, making plans is still important, even though you may need to adjust your plan as you go along.
I think plan's another word for guideline, isn't it? It's not a law, it's a guideline. Can I get from A to B with some structure and be adaptable and flexible along the journey for change?
Indeed. And that brings us to our topic today. You might plan to retire.
Yes.
Get all of your ducks in a row, finish the job, say goodbye to all your colleagues, go to the goodbye party and have a few too many drinks. And then a few months later, you're sitting at home and you go to yourself, you know what? I'm bored.
and 4 times a week I have people come in and go, Lukey, you don't know anybody that wants someone like 3 days a week, do you? Mm-hmm. Because I think that's it, right? It's people have this idea that retirement is a different stratosphere of everything. Like you're going to go up some stairs, open a door and walk into Retirementville and everything as you know it's going to change. When really, as a guy said to me on Tuesday, all I do is just not iron 5 shirts on a Sunday. He goes, otherwise it's just the same. I get up, I have a new routine, I build new habits, I do things. And that's sort of today's, I'm going to go back to work. Well, how does that impact me and what actually happens? Because I'm getting really tired of people going, well, I've retired now. Okay, cool, I've taken a pension or I've taken my PSS or CSS or whatever you got going on. Oh, I can't go back, I'll pay top marginal tax rate. And I go, why? Oh, because that's what happens. Says who? And I think the water cooler talk scares people away from the idea or the flexibility of being able to go back and do something. So we all know that you've got to retire to access your super or hit 65, right? 65 is maximum preservation age. You can keep working, access your super, you don't need to make an election. Under that, you have to say, I've retired, I've ceased gainful employment from a job, not all jobs, from a job. So if you've got 2, quit 1, you can start taking money out of super and keep doing the other job. But let's say you quit. You've met a condition of release, fancy way of saying I've retired. Start a pension, make your contributions, and come to somebody like me and say, I'd like this much a month. Can you make that happen with the resources that I have? Sure. And then you have your holiday, buy your caravan, drive around, go overseas, see the grandkids, get tired of the grandkids, give back to grandkids, and then go, now what? And I think people need to shift their thinking in relation to going back to work. Because like anything, if I had to play golf 7 days a week, it would become a chore. It wouldn't be a recreation. It wouldn't be fun. And if you think about how we're sort of programmed, people work for 30, 40, 50 years and then go, I'm done. And they go, oh, that's over. How good's that? Because they had to. Now, people should think when they retire, what would I like to do? And you might have had your career and been very good at your career or had a job and then find something that's of interest. Where I bet if somebody said, hey, Leon, you really like racing cars.
How did you know?
We'll pay you this much to race cars 2 days a week. And you go, wow, I'd do it for free.
Exactly.
So you need to separate your mentality and attitude to work whilst you've been gainfully employed to get to this point, to then thinking about working as a resource to fund lifestyle and choices and decisions and holidays and spending that you may want to have. Because a lot of people say to me, I don't want the capital in my super to go down, but I still want to be able to do A, B and C. Now, some people have the resources to do that, other people don't. Where you don't, and you want to protect capital in super, working's a great opportunity. And I often say to people, I'll give you a choice. 2 days a week at Bunnings, here's 25 grand. Or save me $500,000. What's easier? And they go, 2 days at Bunnings. Actually, 2 days doing anything. And I go, correct. That's the equivalent of having $500,000 in super paying 5%. So now you shift your thinking from I've got to I'd like to, because it gives me additional cash flow. It lets me pay for those business class flights, not premium economy. It lets me do A, B and C, which is now what you're trying to do, is maximise the value of your time, recognising the effort and blood, sweat and tears you've put into getting to this point. Don't be afraid or disheartened by people saying at golf, oh, you can't go back, you'll pay 49 cents in the dollar. No, you won't. You'll pay whatever your adjusted taxable income is. So let's look at an example. You've got $1 million in super, you start a pension, you're over 60, it comes out tax-free. Happy days. You're taking out, let's make up a number, 70,000. You need 100. Beautiful. You pop down the shops, you get a job, you work 3 days a week, you're earning 30 grand. You can't make an assumption that you're going to pay 49 cents in the dollar because you've gone back to work. Or you might have a PSS pension or a CSS pension or a different income stream that might be accessible in part. All people need to remember is when you go and see your accountant in July, the accountant will say, just like he or she did when you were working, what have you earned this year? What is taxable? And then work out what you need to pay in relation to tax. So if you've got $70,000 coming out of a tax-free pension and you go and earn $30,000 delivering the post 3 days a week, you're not going to pay a lot of tax because all of the money from super is tax-free. Ignore it. $30,000, I've got $18,000 tax-free under my threshold, plus this. You might pay, I don't know, 5% tax. I'll just make it up. Well, if you've earned $30,000 and paid, let's say it's 10%, keep the numbers around, $3,000. Okay, that's not the end of the world. You've got $27,000 to spend with all the time you still have off doing things that you want to do or to save up for a holiday. So it kills me when people go, oh, well, I can't go back to work. Yeah, you can. Another big misconception is, well, I've started my pension, I can't go back to work. Yeah. As long as you meet the condition of release and the rules on the day you start your pension and you're over 60, you could go back to work the next day and work 100 hours a week like a lunatic. No problems. If that floats your boat, great. If you want to do 2 days a week at Bunnings, great. I'd never get a job 2 days a week at Bunnings because anyone that knows me, I wouldn't know what to tell you to screw into what, because these hands are useless outside of my office. And my wife will attest to that. But you need to do something that is of interest for you, because I think going back to work for cash flow is great, but also for social interaction, sense of community, and for the cognitive function of, staying sharp, really, really important. But I don't want people to dismiss that because of these misconceptions in the market that I'll pay too much tax, I can only work a certain number of hours. You can work as many hours as you want wherever you're going to go and do. There's nothing that is a connection between I've retired, something can control the hours that I do. There's nothing like that. Now, people out there will go, oh, but what if I get made redundant? Yes, if you get made redundant, there's a window of time where you may not be able to go back into the same agency or area. But outside of that, there's nothing stopping you from taking a VR from the government and then going and becoming a dental hygienist 3 days a week and answering the phone and having a great time. So think about what you want. Structure your income in a way that gives you the flexibility to live the way you want to live, and look at working as a resource to have a better retirement than a chore, because it might be in a field that you really actually quite like. And you might even do it for free. But you're still out there working and you're building something as a part of the community, which is wonderful.
I want to rewind a moment and go back to something you said a few minutes ago. 65, maximum preservation age.
Yep.
You said once you've gone past 65, you don't need to meet a condition of release. Is that right?
That is a condition of release. You don't need to make an election to cease work.
Oh, okay. So what that means then is that I can hit 65, I can keep working to my heart's content, and draw my super at the same time.
You could tear it all out the next day.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can start a pension, you can make a lump sum withdrawal. You don't have to cease gainful employment because 65 is the cessation under the legislation in itself. So you could be here every afternoon with me and be taking a pension out, rip out $100,000, buy a new car, whatever you want to do. The super doors magically open, regardless of your employment status.
So I just wanted to clear that up, but that's very good to know.
Oh, look, it's and again, it's often missed because people don't realise, and that one kills me because people come in at 67 and go, "Oh, I still owe $150,000 on the mortgage. I'd love to get rid of it." I said, "Well, just rip it out of super." "Oh, but I haven't quit." It's a bit like people saying, "Well, I'd love to start a pension, but I'm not 67."
Yeah.
Well, you've confused pension age for preservation age.
Yeah.
Preservation age is 60. Centrelink discussions start at 67. Two very different things, two very different numbers, two very different tests. But understand.
So once I've gone past 65,
Yep.
I can start pulling money out of my super to add to the money I earn in my job.
Yes.
But if I want to make recontributions back into super
Happy
again,
days.
I can do that as well.
Totally. Now, if you start a pension, you need to put it into a new fund. If you don't start a pension, you could put it back into the same fund. Make sure your paperwork's tight, but you can do both. Because recontribution is not just about reducing work hours and saying, well, I'll start a transition to retirement pension or I'll start an account-based pension and work 4 days and replace my lost wages. You could say, like we spoke about last week, I've got $30,000 in my cap, work's put in 15, I'll take money out of my super fund, put 15 in, claim it as a tax deduction, and you've reached the concessional cap. You could take that further and say, well, I'm going to rip out $60,000 because I've got catch-up concessional space from 5 years prior, and then put that into superannuation and say I make 130. Now I've got a $50,000 tax deduction this year. I'm still working. I'm over 65. I've got access to it. And that's one thing that's a great illustration of can and can't and the assumption of can and can't. I often also get, well, I can't add to money now because I've retired. So I have to go back to work to put money into super. No, you don't. You can put anything you want up to concessional limits, up to legislative limits to age 75 where you don't claim a tax deduction. You can put money into superannuation and claim a tax deduction up to 67 and you might have retired at 60. You have to sit and say, why am I putting it in? What is the benefit? And then am I eligible to do it? But don't miss out on something because the ladies at work say, oh, you've retired, Julie, you can't do it. Yeah, Julie, you can. Your friends might be costing you thousands of dollars in strategy benefits.
Luke Smith from Envision Financial is with me in the studio today, and we're asking the question, should I go back to work after I retire, and what happens if I do? Just before we come back to that topic, Steve rang in and wants to know, if you're receiving an old age pension from Centrelink, can you go back to work for a short period every year? Short answer is, you can do anything you like.
You can do anything you like. And all they'll do is they'll just make an assessment of what's the scaled entitlement that you've got, how much have you earned, and then they'll apply that to the income test to see whether they reduce what you have for that period.
Yeah.
Or you can earn up to, depending if you're single or a couple, there's a sort of a free amount that you can earn.
Yeah.
If you went over that free amount, depending on your situation, all they do is just change what your entitlement is while you're receiving those wages. You tell them it's finished, and then you'd revert back to no income and a normal assessment. But you can work as much as you wish to do for your own well-being, for sure.
Absolutely. But if it exceeds that threshold, which is different for singles and couples, but if it exceeds the threshold, they will reduce your benefit for the time that you're
They'll
working.
just tweak it. Yeah, correct. Exactly right.
Now, back to our topic. What are the key things we need to remember?
Yeah, so work as much as you want. I think that's the most important thing I want people to take from today is do what suits you and your situation between you as part of a couple or you as an individual. If you fancy going back and doing something, great. What people tend to sort of forget is a lot of their social interaction is actually through people at work. And if you take yourself out of that environment and you don't have a great social network or interests or hobbies, it could become very lonely very quickly. And I find that's when people revert back to, oh, well, I've got nothing, I'll just go back to work. Because they're actually just saying, I want to be part of something. I want a sense of community. The people I actually worked with were my social network. I just didn't realise it until I left. So if you want to go back, great. If you want to go back full-time, great. If you want to go back part-time, great. If you want to go back and contract and say, well, I'm going to work through these months and then I'm going to Europe for 4 months, so don't ring me. Great. In this day and age, you can stay at home, work from the pub, work from up a tree. You can work from wherever you want, basically. But work for the right reasons. And they're generally for a sense of community, for some additional cash flow, to be able to have better holidays and a better seat on a plane, drive a nicer car, whatever your motivation is. And if the last one is, well, I want to keep my mental health sharp and cognitively, stay with it, I think that's a wonderful idea. But don't not go because someone at work said, oh, you'll pay too much tax. They don't understand your situation. And if you're not sure, go and ask your accountant. Hey, if I went back to work and earned 50 grand, what's going to happen? And if you've got money coming out of super over 60 from a normal accumulation fund, they'll probably say, not a great deal. If you've got part of your benefit coming from a defined benefit and you've got an untaxed element, yeah, you might have a bit more taxable income or a bit more assessable income. But again, weigh it up on its merit and say, okay, I'm going to go and get this amount of money. What does that allow me to do for the time I'm going to commit to doing it? But do it because you want to. And if you have to, well, unfortunately, you have to. It's not a choice. You got to go back or you just keep working. But use it to then make what you do better. Don't be frightened off by water cooler talk of, oh, you can do this, you can't do that, because 90% of what I hear is completely fictitious.
Now, Luke, where can listeners get more information?
Yeah, office number 6260-4749. We've got envisionfinancial.com.au on the internet. We've got the podcast, the strategy stack at Luke Talks Money on iTunes and Spotify. And we've got Envision Financial Canberra on YouTube, where we've got all of our shows. And we've got Smart Money Strategy, your ultimate guide to financial planning, in all good bookstores and online.
Indeed, Luke. We'll catch you again next week.
See you next week.
Luke Smith from Envision Financial, back again next Friday afternoon.